Welcome back. In today's video, this whole video is dedicated to Cardano, and we're going to be kind of exploring and breaking down what is going on in the Cardano ecosystem, because we are continuing to see a major decline in the staking. We are seeing, non-recovery in the DeFi space, and we're nowhere near all-time record highs. And now Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano, is coming out with some more information that, in my view, is a warning to the Cardano community that things are not looking too hot. And in today's video, we're going to break this all down. We're going to break down, why these things have come to light in the bull market, and where we are, and where Cardano is going, and how Cardano can compete with the rest of crypto. Because as I've been saying for years, guys, I was one of the biggest Cardano bulls in the previous cycle. When I started this channel in 2018, all the way up to the end of the last bull market, I was an extreme bull. But once I got out, I told my viewers, guys, the ecosystem keeps promising and saying they're going to do things, but then they don't actually do it. And one of my big concerns over the past 4 years has been the incredible amount of ADA that has been distributed to the ecosystem through different funding mechanisms. And the fact that here we are at the end of another bull market, and we still have essentially nothing compared to a lot of these newer chains, a lot of the other chains that are innovating in different ways. And Cardano had a big head start here. And so let's kind of break it down. Let's hear what Charles says. Let's hear what some of the people in the community are saying, and really break it down to understand what in the Cardano is going on here, and will Cardano ever reach its record all-time highs again and potentially past that. But first, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We talk about crypto, blockchain, and investing every single day of the year, so make sure you're subscribed. That way you never miss a new video. Sometimes we do videos like this where we deep dive into individual cryptos, and sometimes we talk about the macro view, kind of the zoomed out picture of the overall financial ecosystem. But for today, it's all about Cardano, so let's get into it. So just recently, we heard about the Cardano founder announcing $100 million in Bitcoin buys in a shocking move to prop up the ADA price. And essentially, Charles Hoskinson made a proposal in a bid to boost Cardano DeFi. The Cardano founder proposed creating a sovereign wealth fund for Cardano, which would include up to $100 million worth of Bitcoin and potentially sparking an ADA price surge. Effectively, Charles suggested taking a portion of the Cardano treasury, which currently sits, I think, a little bit over $1 billion or a billion ADA, and taking a small percentage of that and converting it into Bitcoin and stable coins, I guess in anticipation of a bear market, and that way the Cardano ecosystem can still thrive. But this brought up a lot of conversations about, is this just price manipulation? Is this just a way to prop up the ecosystem with nothing holding it up, right? I mean, it's literally like putting a home on stilts, but the stilts are made of plastic, right? Is the plastic going to break? Probably very shortly. Yes. Is this a Band-Aid? Yes. Is this going to fix everything? No. Is it going to fix anything? I don't know. Maybe temporarily, maybe permanently. But the bottom line is, we are in a different world than we were in 2017. And as I've explained extensively on this video, on this channel, these projects can only promise things for so long. And specifically, here we're talking about Cardano. I was a holder of Cardano, one of the biggest bulls on YouTube for Cardano. And the amount of hate I got, the only crypto ecosystem I've had to deal with this, and by the way, we're one of the only channels that basically called these bots, right? And so that made me wonder, like, if the Cardano whales are spending this much money and time and energy just quote unquote fighting FUD and pissing everybody in the community off, and by the way, I was one of the biggest Cardano bulls. They're doing that to me. What are they doing to Ethereum maximalists, Solana maximalists, Bitcoin maximalists? They're doing the same thing. I mean, Anthony Pompliano even posted a video, and he didn't even mention Cardano. He just, in his title, it's like founder of an altcoin suggests, buying Bitcoin, because even they don't want the bots and the bot armies and the paid shills coming into their comments and just, giving them nonsense. And this has been an ongoing issue. This is not like something that's new, but this is like a small piece. But this is kind of gives you understanding of where the sentiment is outside of the Cardano bubble, And by the way, people outside of Cardano are looking at this like, well, if Cardano is going to sell their own coins, that means that Cardano is not really worth anything because they're selling Cardano to buy Bitcoin, which means Cardano is not better than Bitcoin. Cardano is not a better investment than Bitcoin. I mean, it goes into the same thing basically that MicroStrategy is doing, right? The Solana co-founder calls Cardano's proposal $100 million treasury move to Bitcoin so dumb. And by the way, we're going to get to Charles's statements in a minute about this, and his statements alone tell me how dire the situation is. But this is coming from probably Cardano, one of Cardano's previous competitors. I mean, at this point, listen, I'm still not a Solana fan, but when we look at the technological capabilities of Solana and the adoption and use cases for Solana, it's significantly ahead from where Cardano is. And so, yeah, Solana is better than Cardano, right? And so the Solana founder saying this, calling it dumb, is very interesting. In a post on X, the founder of Solana suggested the idea was misguided, arguing that it reflects a poor treasury management and sends the wrong message to the Cardano community, saying projects should keep 18 to 36 months of post-kill list runway in short-term treasury bills, but that's about it. Basically saying that Cardano founder looking into buying more cryptos for their treasury is not the way to go. Going with treasuries is the way to go for a safer, more stable investment. What do you guys think? Meanwhile, we're seeing Ethereum's ecosystem starting to lay the groundwork for what's next. We know that the administration is very pro DeFi. We've been talking about DeFi on this channel for years, specifically with Cardano, that Cardano does not want to interoperate. And by the way, at this point, I'm pretty set on the belief that Cardano cannot interoperate. Not that it doesn't want to build bridges to other ecosystems, because and by the way, a lot of this stuff that's going on in Cardano, I believe it's self-imposed, right? With the USDC conversation, which we're going to get to in just a minute. People in the ecosystem were saying, we don't want USDC. USDC is centrally controlled. I'm like, what do you think Cardano is? USDC can freeze and seize. I'm like, what do you think a regulated stable coin looks like? We don't need that. We don't need that Cryptoviser. We don't need USDC. I've been talking about this shit for years on this channel, years. And so now it's all coming to fruition. Now it's all coming. Guys, look at my old videos, right? No USDC. This was a year ago. ICP, I talk about also needing USDC. Cardano rejected USDC. That was over a year ago. USDC coming to Cardano, proposes USDC immediately. These were all well over a year ago, and we still don't have USDC. USDC Circle just went public. In my view, in these videos from over a year ago, you can go watch them. Just type in the Cryptoviser USDC. I think in this one called Cardano Doom, we talked about the fact that USDC dropped Tron. And I said this is a bad signal for Cardano, because if they're dropping Tron, most likely it's because of regulatory environment, concerns about integration with TradFi when Tron is not really based in the US and all of that. And it was really bad for Tron and for Cardano back then, because that told me, well, that probably explains why Cardano's not on the platform yet. But now we're at a point where Tron changed the game, right? They started making good partnerships with, investors in the space and now Tron is coming to the United States. We're seeing Tron may even reverse merge into a publicly traded company. And so again, Tron and Cardano were in the same exact position in terms of institutional usage, institutions not necessarily wanting Tron, and Tron turned it around and worked very, very hard to go in that direction and regain confidence of the overall, I guess, regulatory environment. And obviously, we're in a different time frame now. But what has Cardano done in the last year to do this? What has Cardano done to get USDC, to get more DeFi, to get more adoption, to get more usage? And by the way, one of the things that I've been talking about, and by the way, we're going to get to Charles in right now, but I've been saying for years on this channel that Cardano is pumping out 50 million ADA through Project Catalyst. Go look it up. Project Catalyst was paying out 50 million ADA multiple times a year, at least twice a year. So let's say 100 million ADA to develop projects. And even as recently as April of this year, just a few months ago, Input Output says 2,000 projects are building on Cardano. Where are all these projects? Where did all the money go? What did they do with all the money? I've been asking this for years. But the people who are invested in the ecosystem haven't been asking the question. They've just been getting this, endless flow of money, and they're just like, oh, we're great, we're doing great, Cardano's going to do well. And they didn't follow through on the commitments to what getting that money meant. Because I've been hearing 2,000 projects have been building on Cardano for years. And here we are at the end of another bull market, and now Charles is sending a dire warning. And by the way, don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I want to be very clear, I don't want any crypto ecosystem to fail. But when the ecosystem themselves are not doing anything to support their own growth, you start to wonder whether the ecosystem failure is built in, right? Was this whole just an a value extraction mechanism? Because again, 2,000 projects are building, and yet Cardano has effectively zero DeFi, and the whales are okay with that. Because if they weren't okay with that, we would be in a different situation today. The same way that the whales didn't want USDC. Guys, they were my most downvoted video. My most downvoted video is this one. Cardano Doom, USDC says no. And go look at the comments on these videos as well. We don't need USDC. USDC is centralized. Well, they can freeze and seize. Well, Cardano wants to get in, play the game. They need to get these things on board. And you can't wait until now to say that you want those things. But that's what they're doing. Anyway, Charles sent a dire warning. He said it's Monday, June 16th. While some of you babble on about feelings, ego, narcissism, and whatever else makes you feel psychological safety, others are coding, investing, and partnering and trading. And by the way, this is true. And they're not doing it on Cardano, guys. So the Cardano ecosystem, well, we just got, a million ADA to build this project out, and they've built nothing. Or they've gotten no use cases, or they've done no marketing to other ecosystems. And by the way, the general Cardano bots or paid shills or whoever they are behind these accounts, for years, they've been pushing away the other ecosystems. Why would, if a YouTuber doesn't even want to talk about Cardano, because they don't want to deal with all the nonsense. If a Twitter X user doesn't want to talk about, they won't even mention the word Cardano. They'll be talking about Cardano, but they won't even say the word. That's how bad it is. Because then they get their comments filled with bots. Oh, well, Cryptoviser, you actually are wrong on this because Cardano is the best. And it's clearly not. I'm showing you the data on the screen. Right? I'm showing you that Cardano's not number one. And they're like, well, Cardano's go number one in DeFi. That's what they're going for. They're Project Catalyst, 50 million ADA. And it's guys, 50 million, 100 million ADA, even at 20 cents, that's $20 million. You can create multiple companies with $20 million. Cardano DeFi effectively has created nothing. And it's not because the community hasn't said this. I've said over and over, we need bridges to other ecosystems. Than the bots. But Cryptoviser, if we add a bridge, bridges gets hacked. That's the number one hack on Ethereum is the bridges. And it's yeah, but people are using the bridges, and they're using the bridges to merge from one chain to another and to develop from one chain to another. So you can have some risk and understand that you need to constantly evolve so that there are as few hacks as possible. But to not do something, it's well, I'm not going to drive because we can get in a car accident. Okay, how are you going to get around? I'm not going to walk because, I can get hit by a car. It's okay, but how are you going to get around? You can't. If you can't walk, you can't drive. How are you going to get around? There is always risk. You have to mitigate the risk and understand the risk and move forward trying to, but Cardano's no, Cryptoviser, we can't have bridges to Ethereum. Why? Because Cardano is going to be the best DeFi. It cannot be the best DeFi if it doesn't have a bridge. Yeah, but bridges get hacked, and then you just go in a loop and circling. It's just an ongoing argument about nothing. This is why they're bots. These are not human beings. And if they are human beings, well, they're probably NPCs. Anyway, so Charles continues saying, we aren't in a static game with a guaranteed seat at the table. We are in an ocean of sharks trying to eat us every day. They poach our people and dApps. By the way, they have. And even projects that Cardano funded and started and launched on Cardano, most of the big ones exited Cardano and they went to other ecosystems. That was a huge flag for me, huge flag. And the Cardano ecosystem, instead of looking at that and saying, what can we do different next time so that we don't lose these? They said, well, Cryptoviser, they actually didn't really leave Cardano. They're just not building on Cardano anymore. It's like, they left Cardano then. No, Cryptoviser, they didn't actually, and they wouldn't actually look at things objectively. They were just looking in the bubble. And again, many of these were bots. And the fact that they still are paying these bots or these shills to do this and hurt the ecosystem, and I don't know who's doing it, but somebody's paying them. That tells me that this is, I don't know, potentially not fixable, right, at this point. And it sounds like Charles is saying the same thing, by the way. He said, we have to decide if we want to win, if we are serious about having 1 billion users, if we actually want Cardano in every home. After all this dust settles, Cardano still has a stablecoin issue. Well, who's the #1 person who's been talking about the stablecoin issue for years and has been getting basically a lot of heat? This was one of the reasons we stopped talking about Cardano on this channel. Because to me, it was like, if they're not even open to implementing USDC, it's over for Cardano. It's over. And I said this well over a year ago. And by the way, we're going to get to the USDC stuff in a minute because now we're getting even more info that shows I was right as well. But yes, Cardano has a stablecoin issue. Only $33 million has been deployed on chain. We have a means to fix it. Calling Charles names, egotistical, all this other stuff doesn't solve this objective reality. He said, you'll just have me working on my ranch, not caring anymore. And the same $33 million issued on DeFi. There aren't Genesis keys anymore. You're all going to have to figure it out if you want to solve problems or just complain about them. Growing up is hard, but that's where we are as an ecosystem. And it's tough love, but I'll be doing you all a disservice if I didn't say this. Well, listen, guys, I don't agree with Charles on a lot of things, but I think Charles is accurate here. The only issue is it may be too late. And that is really, really, it's a hard thing to kind of take in. I mean, personally, guys, I don't hold Cardano. I haven't held Cardano for a while. For a lot of these reasons that we're talking about in today's video that could have been solved well over a year ago. There's always a way to get these things done, right? It may be hard, but when you have bots and you have paid shills and you have people in the ecosystem, like the stablecoin community for USDM and DJED and all these on Cardano saying, we don't need USDC, our stablecoin's better. And it's like the delusion that these people had to think that USDM or DJED stablecoin that are unregulated, not tied into the financial system, can overtake and do better than USDC. And so a longtime user of Cardano said, what if spending $10 million from the treasury got us USDC? Because we heard previously many times from Charles and the team at the entities that they had conversations with Circle and Circle didn't want to add it, or they had a very high fee. And I looked at it like, well, if you're paying $20 million and you're going to bring in billions of dollars of liquidity, potentially, it's probably worth it. But Cardano's like, no, we don't need USDC. We have Project Catalyst. You can get 50 million ADA every 3 months if you want. And by the way, again, since the last cycle, we paid out from Cardano hundreds of millions of ADA. Nothing to show for it, effectively, right? Look at Internet Computer. In 1 year, Internet Computer went from first iteration of large language model that deploys on chain to you can literally create a dApp and deploy it on the Internet Computer within 30 seconds. And Cardano's still today, at the end of the bull run, still talking about USDC. Anyway, Charles said it won't, the $10 million. The last offer was $20 million. The issue isn't the integration fee, it's the size of the DeFi market and the amount minted. Whoa, whoa. That is a pretty big bombshell. Because listen, I never thought it was fully about the amount of money. But if they were willing to, if they went to Circle and said, listen, we're going to give you $20 million, we're going to, whatever you need to get this integrated, we're going to do it. Now, maybe they said you need to have a lot of DeFi. You need to have a lot of DEX ecosystem volume. You need to have, better metrics in DeFi. Well, if Cardano put all of their energy into building that out and encouraging and welcoming developers from other ecosystems, maybe spending that 50 million ADA that they gave out multiple times a year, maybe they spent that just 1 year, 100 million ADA, and they said to developers, you come to our ecosystem from Ethereum and you build a bridge, we're going to give you 50 million ADA or 20 million ADA or 10 million ADA. You don't think that would be incentive enough for these developers to come to Cardano and build a DeFi bridge to Ethereum and bring all of that? They didn't do any of this. They paid 50 million ADA every few months to projects that didn't create anything. And if they did create anything, they created less value than the 50 million ADA were worth. And that's self-imposed. I'm not a banker. I didn't really get involved in Project Catalyst. I remember the first round of Project Catalyst, a lot of long-term Cardano users were putting in submissions and getting shut down within 3 hours from people they never even heard of. Like, where did these people just come in and they're like, oh, well, this is not really going to be good for Cardano. It's like, I've never even heard you say anything about Cardano. Who are you? Like, when did you get involved in Cardano, right? And so, again, the other ecosystems, it just got layered and layered and layered to just ignore Cardano. And Cardano didn't do anything to welcome these people in. And so that stuff feeds, I feel. Like, I feel like it feeds. Like, who do you think is working at Circle? It's probably developers who worked on these other ecosystems. And so if they had a bad taste, think about it. Like, if there's 100 developers at Circle and 90 of them had bad experiences or bad, viewpoint of Cardano, why would they even waste their time? And that's something that the Cardano community needs to look at. One of the big influencers in Cardano said, can someone smarter than me explain in 2 sentences why we can't just vote on Cardano spending $10 million to get USDC? Charles responded to this post as well and said, because it's a complete lie that option actually exists. There is no $10 million integration fee on the table that somebody is holding back. The lie continues to be repeated again and again as a way to slander the Cardano Foundation or input-output. It has never been on the table. Well, clearly it has, because even in his other one, the last offer was $20 million. But I think that what Charles is trying to say is there was an integration fee potentially, but that's not the issue. The issue is that nobody's building or using Cardano. He can't say this to you, because if he says this, imagine the headlines. Cardano founder says nobody's using Cardano, and it would just self-implode. But I'm telling you what he means by this, at least my opinion on that and my analysis. It seems like he's saying people are not using Cardano, and that's the issue, the reason why. Now, Cardano bots will come in and say, Cryptoviser, people are definitely using Cardano. Look at 23,000 active addresses. And I'm like, you're missing the fucking point. You're literally missing the point. Like, we're telling you what the problem is, and you come back and say, but Cryptoviser, that's actually incorrect. And it's like, okay, again, going back to, you just piss people off, and then they, like, I don't hold Cardano. I'm doing these videos because I care about the overall crypto ecosystem and I want to see all these projects succeed. But there is a huge problem here with the ecosystem or the bots allowing this to continue and ignoring the feedback that other ecosystems have given, that YouTubers have given, online influencers have given. I'm not saying they have to do these things, but all these things we've talked about before, and I'm not the only one who's talked about these things, right? And so somebody said, so what's the cost to integrate USDC or Tether? Because USDC is not the only stable coin. Charles said there isn't one. They don't want to do it. Guys, I have to take a sip of coffee for this one because I don't know how much clearer it needs to be. This is what we've been talking about for years on this channel. And the response previously, when we have talked about USDC, has been, we don't need it. We have USDM, we have our own stable coins, we have DeFi, we have users. Bots do not count as users, guys. They just don't. But a bot doesn't know that, right? And I'm literally talking about an NPC or an actual like computer, but if it's a human NPC, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about either. And so nobody in the Cardano ecosystem has shut this down for years. And this is where we are at the end of the cycle. And so Charles is right. Like the ecosystem can't just assume that people are coming. In fact, the data shows that people are leaving. They're leaving Cardano. Look at DeFi. This is DeFi in the amount of ADA. And you can see here, let me make it so you can see it a little bit better. You can see here from the beginning of 2024, there was 640 million ADA in DeFi, and now it's 430 million. That's a reduction of about 30% or more. And it looks like it's falling off a cliff here. This is not good. And by the way, I don't think that it's over. I mean, look at what Tron is doing. Tron is going to go public in the US. Tron partnered with a lot of the same DeFi people that World Liberty Finance is dealing with. And so Cardano ecosystem, I believe, can turn this around. But it is going to be very, very difficult. I think very almost impossible to do. Because at this point, the ecosystem has wasted so much ADA to develop for development, and there's nothing there. They wasted so much ADA on paying all of these people around the world to go to these conferences and talk about constitutional convention. Again, are these actual Cardano users or are they not? We don't know. And so maybe this is the part where it's just over. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not advocating for this. I'm just saying. Because remember, that same influencer said this last year in 2024, after I was posting all these videos about USDC on Cardano. He said, USDC on Cardano, it's time. I'm assembling a team. And basically, he talked about, building a team to get this done. It's not the only influencer that did this. And then they got shut down. They got shut down by the whales who came in and said, no. We'll give you some money to do research on USDC, but we're not going to do USDC. And by the way, if last year the situation was that Circle or Tether didn't want USDC, why didn't they just say that then? Because then the Cardano ecosystem could have evolved to the point where maybe the DeFi would be where it needs to be for an integration of USDC. But here's the deal, guys. Circle is now a publicly traded company. So the pay to play, that's over. And so the opening to get USDC was before the IPO. And now the IPO hit. And by the way, you can see that for sure because all of these, there's a lot of new chains that were added in the last year to Circle. And they did it very rapidly. Same thing that happened in 2021. The Cardano community got Cardano listed on Coinbase. Because if Cardano wasn't listed on Coinbase by the time Coinbase went public, it wouldn't have been listed on Coinbase in the previous cycle, or potentially ever. And so, yeah, the situation I feel is dire. It's really dire because it's not just DeFi that's dropping. Live stake is dropping. And this is a huge metric. And it's something that the Cardano community, if you're holding ADA, you need to wake the hell up. Because now it's at 57. Last week or 2 weeks ago when I recorded a video, it was 58%. And last year, when we were talking about Cardano, in the beginning of 24, it was 63 or 64%. And every single percentage point that we have a drop in live stake, every percentage point is 380 million ADA. So we've gone down about 6 percentage points at a minimum in the last year. So that's over 1 billion ADA. And the price hasn't moved. And the ecosystem has delivered 50 million ADA in Project Catalyst every 6 months or every 3 months or something like that. So all this ADA is being distributed. All the staking rewards are being distributed. DeFi is declining, staking is declining, and the price isn't moving. And it's because of these things. The big money this cycle is in Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's it. And the other altcoins that are doing well, this is because their other metrics on chain look really good. Stablecoin integrations, interoperability, we're talking about AI on some protocols as well. And remember what I said, in this cycle, you can't chase narratives. And Cardano has been trying to chase narrative. Other ecosystems as well try to chase narratives, right? Solana's narrative this cycle was meme coins. Now they're trying to chase every other, narrative, but they don't have really anything. They don't have they didn't build anything besides meme coin platforms. And anybody who says, well, Cryptoviser, that's wrong. I'm not saying they don't have DeFi. Obviously they do. And they have other use cases. But this cycle, they didn't jump onto anything besides the meme coin fiasco. And that's why Solana has come down fairly substantially. And so, that's kind of where we are. Dan even said this in January of last year. He said, I was called worthless by a team member of the Mihen, which is the USDM stablecoin on Cardano, for encouraging the idea of getting USDC on Cardano. Mihen is creating a fiat-backed stablecoin on Cardano. So much to say. I'll just say they need a PR strategy. But here's the deal, guys. The point is, this is one of the biggest influencers in Cardano. And he was even getting backlash about, no, USDM is going to be better. I remember. Go look at my USDC videos where we were talking about this stablecoin on USDM. I mean, literally hundreds and hundreds of comments. Most of these accounts we had to block because they were bots or paid shills. But most of the comments were, no, Cryptoviser, USDM is going to overtake USDC. And it's like, again, the delusion that you're going to overtake a $60 billion is on Circle, is minted on Circle. $60 billion. That's almost triple the market cap of Cardano in total. And Cardano has no access to any of that liquidity. And by the way, they don't have access to liquidity because nobody's using the DeFi. And nobody's using the DeFi because they don't have access to liquidity. And there's no access to liquidity because they don't have bridges. They don't have interoperability features. And people in the Cardano community will say in the comments, but Cryptoviser, we have WanChain. WanChain is interoperability. Nobody is using it. And by the way, not just that nobody's using it, nobody has used it, right? You can't compare the volume of Circle or Tether with your homegrown stablecoin that's not regulated anywhere, has no interconnectivity with banks anywhere, and has no interconnectivity with any other blockchain ecosystem, period. And as I said at the time, this idea that it's all or nothing, that we can't have Circle because we have to create our own stablecoins. We can't have a bridge because we can get hacked. We can't do this because of this. We can't do this because of this. Like it's all or nothing. Why can't you do multiple things at once? And so that's where we are in the cycle, guys. And by the way, it's not just Cardano, right? It's not just Cardano. XRP is in the same kind of situation, but the difference here is that XRP has been building the relationships for years with these other ecosystems, not pushing them out, not paying bots and shills to go and just annoy the F out of anybody who says anything negative about XRP. And as I've said about Ripple and XRP is, even though I'm not an XRP fan person or an XRP army person, don't underestimate what XRP and Ripple are going to do. Because for years we've been hearing, oh, XRP is going to hit $589. And I'm like, there's no possible way. But the price keeps going up even though Ripple keeps selling because Ripple keeps integrating. They just got USDC, right? They just partnered with Circle. And by the way, this comes weeks after Charles was advocating for Ripple to buy Circle before they went public because he believes, it appears at least, that he believes that Cardano can integrate with XRP, and then if they own Circle, then Circle would come to Cardano, and it backfired fairly big because now they did IPO, XRP did partner, and now USDC is on the XRP ledger natively. And so it's not looking good. It's not looking good. And as I've explained, the top 10 is going to be reshuffled. And the Wall Street, They're looking at the fundamentals. They're looking at the usage. They're looking at the programmability and buildability. And you can't do that on Cardano because unless you're with the whales, you can't get any funding for this 50 million ADA. There's no outcry of why the ecosystem is paying out hundreds of millions of ADA, and there's nothing to show for it. I mean, this should have been paused. Project Catalyst should have been paused years ago, but the fact that it wasn't paused years ago, after millions of ADA were paid out, told me this was by design, and this is going to continue to drain the ecosystem. Effectively, it's a rug pull without being a rug pull, because all this ADA that's going out and not being productive, it's diluting your holdings. Those people are probably selling the ADA. And by the way, Charles even said, like, oh, well, we could put 100 million ADA on the market and it will have no impact on the price, which tells me they've already sold over 100 million ADA and they know it's going to have no impact on the price. So as an investor, if I was holding the coin when they say that, by now it would have already been sold because that tells me the dilution is going to continue. And by the way, you can offset the dilution. Think about what Doge and what Elon Musk said, right? He said, we're going to have to grow to outpace the debt. We're not going to be able to cut to improve the debt situation. And it's the same thing in the ecosystems. The idea is if you're paying out all of this money and they're diluting the shareholders or the token holders, but the value of the ecosystem is growing because more people are using it, there's more products to use and all of this, well, it should offset the sales. But if you're only having sales and you're not having growth and you're not having more value built on the ecosystem, it's a failure. And it will continue to get diluted to zero effectively. And so this, it just goes back to whether you're an investor or you're a fan person. These coins have no allegiance to you. These are investments. And Charles's warning here was very eye-opening because a lot of this we've talked about on this channel. And I do want to see Cardano succeed. I've been one of the big proponents of Cardano for years, but at some point I had to walk away and say, enough is enough. This ecosystem is not growing. The participants in the ecosystem appear that they don't want it to grow. And again, it's these bots, these paid shills, and this has been going on for years. And by the way, even if this is not from the whales have not called this out. The whales have not pushed this down on and say, no. Any user of Cardano who sees these bot accounts that just keep repeating the same thing, I mean, going back to transactions per second. I mean, if you look on Cardano's own Explorer and you click on TPS, which is transactions per second, it's single-digit transactions per second, less than 1 transaction per second over the last 7 days. But when I say that, the bots and the paid shills. But Cryptoviser, technically, in one transaction on Cardano, there's multiple other transactions, so it's actually thousands of transactions per second. And it's like your own fucking Explorer shows 1 transaction per second. And you're arguing that. And I'm like, these have to be NPCs, like no actual brain, right? But nobody called this out and said, guys, stop that. We're going to fix how we metric transactions. That way we get in line with the rest of how the rest of crypto and blockchain measures transactions per second. But instead, nobody said anything. And so people stopped talking about it. But outside of the Cardano bubble, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. I feel like a lot of this was self-imposed by the Cardano community and the bots themselves and the whales allowing all of this to go on for years. And that's where it is. And I don't think the whales care that much, because if they did, they would have done something about it. They would have said, enough with these bots, enough with these paid shills, enough with the commenting and attacking people who are just trying to talk about what this ecosystem is. And now we're at the point where nobody talks about it. Nobody, even Anthony Pompliano on his tweet, he didn't even say Cardano. He just said altcoin community or something like that wants to buy Bitcoin. because he doesn't want the Cardano bots coming onto his page and commenting, even though they did. And go look at the comments. Bad take, Anthony. Anthony, you need to do more research. Anthony, you're an idiot. Anthony. And it's like, nobody got the memo. No other ecosystem in crypto does this. No other ecosystem in crypto has this much drama constantly, because it's about the technology. And it's about looking at realistically at the technology and saying, is it in line with where the rest of this ecosystem is going? And if not, how do we course correct? Now, Charles appears to be trying to do that now, but it may be a little bit too late because it's so ingrained in the ecosystem. All right, I pulled up the Anthony Pompliano video because I want you guys to see. It said, alert, altcoin founders are dumping their tokens to buy Bitcoin. They're admitting who will be the last man standing. And this is from the Anthony
nearly
Pompliano
everything
podcast. So he played the part, but again, no Cardano. And then look at the comments. Your headline reads, altcoin founder dumps their coins for Bitcoin, while in reality, Charles is proposing boosting TV. Guys, Anthony knows what he's proposing. He played the video. He doesn't need somebody coming in and saying, but Anthony, you got this wrong. You're actually, like, this is ridiculous. Let's see what else. Again, another from the same user, the sign that altcoin season is around the corner, when Bitcoin maximalists have nothing better to do than take clips out of context and combine them. That's exactly what Charles said he wants to do. He wants to sell ADA to buy Bitcoin. You're arguing the reality of what he said. That doesn't make sense. Again, we've blocked most of these accounts because we can't deal with this kind of nonsense anymore. Somebody said that's a self-destructive move. You will lose loyal holders. That's all they have left, loyal holders. You know, I mean, another one, fake news, same user. And this is how it is on every single post that mentions Cardano. And he didn't even mention Cardano, right? But you guys kind of get the point here. Bad take. Here's another one. Bad take. Okay, what's a bad take? This is so much misleading. This is what it says. Where is it? This is so much misleading in your video that I'm not even bothered to point it out. Yeah, 332 followers. Totally real account. Not a bot, not a paid shill, not an alt account. You know, and so this is where the issue lies, that nobody wants to talk about Cardano. Nobody wants to build on Cardano. The engineers don't, there's no interest in Cardano. And it's for these reasons. I mean, you had developers that have proposed things or said things about Cardano in a critical way, but also gave corrective points like, hey, this is what Cardano can do to fix it. And they just get hate. So they stop giving feedback. And when you stop giving feedback, when you stop listening to the actual community, not just the whales, not just the NPC bots, this is where it is. No DeFi, no stable coins, no use cases, no usage. And then we're at the end of a bull market. And so take with you what you will. I hope Cardano can get this right and fixed, but there's no way that I can ever hold this coin until they have stable coin integration and actual use cases. And they're never going to get there if the community continues to pretend that everybody's coming to build on Cardano. Where the fuck are they? There's 2,000 projects building. Where the fuck are they? There's millions and millions, hundreds of millions of ADA that's been paid out over the last 5 years. Where's the products? Where, at a bare minimum, a bridge to another chain? There's none. There's none. So if you don't build, they won't come. And with that, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video and the conversation. Dire warning from Charles Hoskinson. Let me know what you guys think down below. If you are a bot, you're probably going to get blocked. So, I mean, you may want to hold your resources. And yeah, it is what it is, guys. We don't really talk about Cardano on this channel because of many of these reasons. Hopefully they fix it up and hopefully their community thrives, but it is not looking good. It is not looking good. And it is, it's really sad because, again, I was one of the biggest bulls of Cardano. And I repurchased after I sold my ADA. And then we got into this whole USDC thing. And I was like, yeah, this is ridiculous. I'm out. And I never looked back because we're here to make money, right? We're not here to just hand money out and see our dilution. And again, you zoom out on the charts. We went up to $1.20. That's 30% of the last all-time record high. and we haven't been back since. Look at the chart. I mean, this is not even close to a pump, and people are holding on, thinking that we're going to get to $3.10 again, let alone $10 or $20. Not going to. It can't happen, guys. Can't happen. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. And again, just go to my YouTube channel and just type in USDC right at the top. Little magnifying glass clip USDC, and you'll see all my USDC Cardano videos from years ago. And you can see the conversation has not changed at all. And what they're proposing now, it's like, it's too late. It's too late. Circle's public company now. And so for them to add ADA, you need to make sure that you're going to get them more money. Otherwise, they're not going to add it. Could have been added before, but the ecosystem dropped the ball on that. And so how are they going to get out of this? I don't know. Tether. That's really what they have left. They have to get Tether on board. And I don't know that they're going to be able to do it. I don't know if Tether even is interested. So I'll have to wait and see. Let me know your thoughts down below. See you guys in the next video. Invest responsibly and crypto on.